Sports Scene, Hampton Road's premier interview show with Kraig Bicouvaris, each Saturday from 10 a.m. to 11.
And you look at that, 4-4 at home, which is just average, 4-3-1 on the road. I mean, you're not going to win any games like that. They were not the same team after they beat the Packers, yet the Packers were a totally different team.
Interact with Sports Scene on Twitter @GregBic and listen weekly as Kraig interviews distinguished guests with excellent commentary and insight. Sports Scene, Saturdays at 10 a.m. on the Lighthouse 100.1 FM. From Chesapeake, Virginia, the Lighthouse 100.1 presents Sports Scene. Sports Scene features local, regional, and nationally acclaimed guests and excellent interviews. Follow Sports Scene on Twitter @GregBic. Now here is Kraig Bicouvaris.
Sports Scene presented by Hampton Roads OnlineMall.com. Sports Scene midweek online, Saturday on the radio on WPMH, AM 1010 and 100.1 FM. And tunein.com by typing WPMH in the search bar. Tell your friends about Sports Scene. Twitter @GregBic, @GJB Radio. And you can see the rest of my Twitter handles on GJBTV.com. Thank you to our military. Guest lineup presented by Buffalo Wild Wings and Newport News. Phone line presented by Outback Steakhouse in Kempsville, GJBTV.com. Major League Baseball, as most of the divisions now are heating up. Folks, recently, on July 14th, we lost a great friend of the Hampton Roads community, a friend of mine personally who I've interviewed on TV and radio both, Sweet Pea Purnell Whitaker. I worked some of his fights for ABC and HBO behind the scenes, covered one even for WTJZ back in the day. He was a true treasure to Hampton Roads. We're going to miss him dearly. May his memory be eternal. We love Sweet Pea Whitaker, and we're dedicating this show to him today. Great interviews, excellent guests, business segments, highlights, commentary, what teased me off. Thank you for listening to Sports Scene. We love our regulars, tourists who listen online and on the radio. Stay tuned.
Sports Scene, Hampton Road's premier interview show with Kraig Bicouvaris, each Saturday from 10 a.m. to 11.
And you look at that, 4-4 at home, which is just average, 4-3-1 on the road. I mean, you're not going to win any games like that. They were not the same team after they beat the Packers, yet the Packers were a totally different team.
Interact with Sports Scene on Twitter @GregBic and listen weekly as Kraig interviews distinguished guests with excellent commentary and insight. Sports Scene, Saturdays at 10 a.m. on the Lighthouse 100.1 FM. Catch up on archived editions of Sports Scene by going to GJBTV.com and clicking the YouTube image on the homepage. Now back to Sports Scene with Kraig Bicouvaris.
And welcome back to Sports Scene. Kraig Bicouvaris, glad you're with us right here on our show every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on WPMH. It's a pleasure to talk to Andy Hilton. We've had him on Sports Scene on several stations, including this one, and of course Red Zebra and Sports Highlights too. Andy from 757, Recruit 757, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on, Kraig. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Very good, my friend. Middle of the summertime right here, of course. The football scene's going on. I guess it's never too early to talk high school football.
Not at all. We're not that far away from football season. In fact, two-a-days start on the 1st of August. So it is time to get into football mode. It'll be here before you know it.
Absolutely. All right, what sticks out so far, Andy? First of all, during the summer, any changes during the summer? We saw a lot of coaches even quit during the middle of the summer.
Absolutely, and would you believe we've had 18 coaching changes this year? So going from last season to this season, there's going to be 18 new faces, or at least new old faces and new places as far as high school football is concerned. Counting about 60 football programs, 757, you're looking at almost, a third of the positions changing.
A part of that, Andy, too, is the time commitment. You've heard that from a lot of coaches. They just don't have the before and after time. It's not just about the 3-hour game. It's about the conditioning year-round, the practice schedule, getting the assistant coaches together, the staff transition. It just seems to be the demand on time, especially in 2019 in this world we're living in, is totally different from even 5 or 10 years ago.
It really is, and you're right that several coaches have mentioned that time has been an issue. Spending time with their families is important. And you got to remember, these coaches really aren't compensated in a big way. They make a few $1,000s as a stipend, and otherwise they're still teaching at school, so they're working a full schedule. And football coaching has demands of its own, which, as you mentioned, is year-round. It has to be these days. Virginia public schools at the very least aren't paying these coaches a lot of money, so they're doing it because they love it, and sometimes they can burn themselves out doing that.
Exactly. You really have to pace yourself. I'd like to see them hire some retired coaches and teachers who can just concentrate just on football, because teaching school and preparing a game plan, especially football that's once a week, is very tough.
Well, one of the things that comes into play also is that with college recruiting, college football coaches stop by during certain times of the year to visit the school and visit the kids, get a chance to see them in their own environment and get some feedback directly from their coach. And in order to properly do that, the coach needs to be in the building at the time when these things happen. So that's quite often why, in almost every case, the head football coach is going to be someone who's already on staff and in the building at the high school.
All right, let's start off with the Peninsula, Andy. What's going on in the Peninsula? New coaches at Menchville and Denby, those programs have been down for several years.
Yes, you have new coaches at Menchville and Denby, as well as a new coach in Coach Inco, Kraig who came in from York. He is a Bethel alum. He is the new head coach at Bethel, so you actually have 3 of the 10 programs in the PD with new head coaches. Bethel should be reinvigorated with his addition. Menchville has a lot of numbers, a lot of kids that have come out. I've already visited them this summer, and they probably doubled their numbers over previous years. So Coach Taylor has a lot of good things going on there. Denby may again be the doormat this year, but realistically, some of the things change, some of the things stay the same. I would expect Phoebus to reside at the top of the district when all is said and done.
Very nice. And, of course, Coach Incarmenius played for Bethel, played for Dennis Kozlowski. He's an alumni there. He also was the head coach at Gloucester at one time, too, and had been an assistant coach for several years as well. Just a solid individual. And Kraig Incarmenius trying to bring Bethel back to the Coach Koz days.
That's right. And he very much is a Coach Koz disciple, and we may see a much better Bethel team this fall.
Yeah, and a disciplined team. I really, my mother taught at Bethel, and to sing school colors, Andy, you know this by covering all these different youth sports and various sports, that uniforms are a part of a school tradition, part of the school spirit, part of the band, part of the atmosphere of high school football. When you start changing the school colors just because you want to as a football coach, you're really disengaging the alumni as well.
Yes, I would agree with that, and there's a heck of a lot of tradition at Bethel. I think things are going to look very familiar even now in 2019, look very familiar to fans of Bethel.
Mike Smith, head football coach since 1971. Last year was a mess for them. He didn't coach for several games due to some issues there. We'll leave it at that. One of his assistant coaches stopped right there as the season was evolving. What's the status of Mike Smith? What's the status of his staff this year?
I just saw Mike at the Hampton Roads Youth Foundation camp last weekend at Hampton University. Mike is going to give it a go for another year. I've talked to him directly, and he said he's good for at least one more year. I think, honestly, his priority is finishing on a high note. I think as long as he finishes strong, this could be his last season. Then again, if they have a season like they did last year, he may just decide to give it up altogether. It's funny. At one point, I thought Mike might die on the football field in terms of him living and coaching and coaching and coaching. He may actually step down. This could be his last year. That's something that might be a little strange to see.
They played pretty good, but they did lose some games. They did not make the postseason last year, correct?
They did not make the postseason, and they don't have a lot of talent coming back, so they should be a young team, an inexperienced team, and they might see some struggles this year.
One school in Hampton we don't hear a whole lot about is Kecoughtan. What about them?
Kecoughtan is young, but I tell you, they're very talented. I haven't had a chance to see them since May, but they did have quite a bit of talent when they had a college workout at Darling Stadium in the first week of May. Quarterback situation may still need to be addressed, but I tell you what, it's maybe funny. It may sound funny, but there's a lot of talented ninth graders in the program. Again, they're going to be young, but they're going to be talented, and I wouldn't take them for granted, that's for sure.
Talking to Andy Hilton from Recruit 757. We'll get to all Andy's particulars as the show goes on. Andy's kind with his time, his talent, and his treasure over the years to join us. What about York County and Gloucester? Gloucester's really improved the last several years.
Well, Gloucester's really improved. The one downside for Gloucester, for the Dukes, they had a lot of seniors manning the roster last year, so they may take a step back. Gloucester competing in the Peninsula District, they were a playoff team last year and did quite well. They believe they lost in the first round of the playoffs to Salem, which Salem ended up being, Virginia Beach ended up being a very strong team. Expect Gloucester to take a step back. If they make the playoffs again, that'll be in and of itself will be a win. When you look at the Bay Rivers, York County, Grafton replaced their head coach. They were one of several programs in the Bay Rivers to replace coaches. You're going to see York, the Falcons, be the class of York County. And moving on to Williamsburg in the Bay Rivers, Lafayette once again should be the class of Williamsburg and the Bay Rivers.
Talking to Andy Hilton. Andy, what about all this heat? This is definitely an issue this summer. It's always an issue, but it's been very hot in the month of July. Back in the day, the kids would just start practicing in August, but now it's pretty much conditioning year-round. They barely finish high school graduation. Now they're out there playing football again. What about the heat, the elements, the proper nutrition?
Well, it's funny. As much as we know more and more about good nutrition and about keeping potassium levels up, you see the kids eating bananas, you see them drinking plenty of water. Come the first couple of weeks of the season, we always see cramps. That's one of the biggest issues with conditioning. Week 1, week 2, even week 3, you'll see cramping left and right. And despite preparation, I have a feeling that we're going to see that all over again. We can hope that August doesn't bring the heat that July has brought. And if the weather cools down, it'll be a whole lot easier for the kids to do their conditioning and get all their practice work in.
Talking to Andy Hilton. Andy, what about the pros and cons? Some teams in the past have played 1 or 2 games before schools even started with very little attendance, and it's great to get it started. I know people are excited about high school football. They still need they're kids. They still need to have a balanced summer, go to the pool, go to the beach, whatever. But when you start having several games before school starts, then after that you get a bye sometime and only 70% of the season left. That's not a whole lot, but at the same time, there are some pros and cons playing all these games before school starts.
Well, and the VHSL, that's the governing body, Virginia High School League, that governs the public school schedule. They try to get everything done. The state championship game should be done by the second weekend of December. The calendar's kind to us this year in that we have only 1 week of games, what we would call week 0 out of an 11-week schedule to get 10 games in. Labor Day weekend is the start of the season this year, so we shouldn't have as much of a problem. You'll only see some teams play their first game before school goes back in. Labor Day weekend may create some concerns, but at least the schedule's a little more kind to us due to the way the calendar falls this year.
All right, we're going to take a short break, come back with more of Andy Hilton. We'll talk about the South Side, his special event, and a lot more on Sports Scene after these messages.
Here's important new information from the Diabetes Solution Center for you, a family member, or a loved one suffering with diabetes. If you have lost your provider, or if you need a provider for diabetic supplies, you may qualify to receive your diabetic testing supplies now with little or no out-of-pocket cost, regardless of your age. All you need is Medicare or private insurance to be potentially eligible. Call the Diabetes Solution Center right now for details. Just takes a couple of minutes. Our friendly, knowledgeable agents will give you free, no-obligation information, handle all the insurance paperwork, and make sure your supplies are delivered directly to your door for free.
Call U.S. Medical Supply 24 hours a day. 800-520-8629. 800-520-8629. 800-520-8629. Call right now. 800-520-8629.
You are listening to Sports Scene with Kraig Bicouvaris. Now, back to Kraig.
All right, back with Andy Hilton and Recruit 757. Kraig Bicouvaris, glad you're with us, at Kraig Bic on Twitter. Andy, let's talk about the South Side. The South Side's the biggest area in Hampton Roads. Virginia Beach has 11 schools alone. So let's start off with Virginia Beach.
Sure, Virginia Beach is a strong district once again. Ocean Lakes should be the class of the district, but then again, they're losing their starting quarterback. They have a lot of talent coming back. Coach Joe Jones took them all the way to the state semifinal last year. And the districting, or rather the classification, changes up a little bit. We have quite a few schools locally dropping down to Class 5. Ocean Lakes is still in Class 6. They may very well be that representative, but teams like Lansdowne drops down to 5, where Bayside also resides. Cox drops down to 5. So when it comes to tournament time, that could make things a little different for the teams in each district.
Very nice talking to Andy Hilton. Of course, Andy, what about the other schools? Grassfield's been solid. Oscar Smith, of course, they've been a staple in the 21st century and, that type thing. But at the same time, they've had a lot of coaching changes, including, Bill D passing away a few years ago and one of their coaches moving on. But what's the status of Oscar Smith?
Yeah, Oscar Smith is going to be an interesting situation because they're going to have their fourth coach in, about 6 years.
Yeah.
They had Rich Morgan. They had Scott Johnson for 3 seasons, and actually Scott followed Bill D, who coached only 1 season before passing away, unfortunately. So Chris Scott comes in from Bishop Sullivan as the Bishop Sullivan private school program kind of winds itself back to where it was before Chris Scott's arrival. That is, they're going to be just I hate to say a run-of-the-mill private school program, but they're going away from the national scheduling and away from attracting the top-level talent. That left Chris Scott available to, or more interested in, coaching a school like Oscar Smith, landing that job. And the big thing for him will be continuing the success of the program. And I would say odds are pretty good that Oscar Smith will be able to do that.
Now, Oscar Smith had several games on national TV, including Lake Taylor several years ago, but we're talking several years ago. I guess those days are gone, especially this year. They're not going to have any national games on TV.
Well, and they don't have a national game, but every year they've played a out-of-state opponent, or in the case of Lake Taylor, just a national type of a game where Lake Taylor was coming off a state championship that year. The interesting thing for them is that they are playing, Oscar Smith is hosting Highland Springs to open their schedule. I believe that's the first weekend of September. Highland Springs is the 4-time state champion, as in 4 years in a row. They've won the Class 5 state championship. They're an absolute juggernaut. And if anyone's a high school football fan, with Highland Springs team, and that program is amazing. It's going to be interesting to see them play Oscar Smith.
Talking to Andy Hilton from Recruit 757, absolutely. Oscar Smith's always a tough out, no matter who's on their staff. Pretty disciplined team all around as well. When you talk about all these different coaches and athletes that have played there over the years, had guys that have gone on to Alabama and so forth and so on. But what is the interest level, Andy, in high school football? We know it's always exciting before it starts, but I'm talking as the season goes on, as far as when you're around a lot of schools on both sides of the water. It seems almost like the smaller schools on the peninsula, like York and Tab and those type of schools, have their own following because they can play at their own stadiums. I think that's one thing. And even though I've been broadcasting Newport News games for 29 plus years, I've been critical. I think Todd Stadium is a ghost town, except for a few marquee games. I think they should definitely think about at least one game a year, do what the Southside schools do, play at their own facility. Even if they lose a bet on the gate, they can still sell concessions to make up for it, because the stadiums just don't pack them in anymore.
Well, the upside for them, of course, is having that one central stadium gives them a solid facility and gives them a consistent playing field and something consistent in terms of a home field advantage when that is to be had. If you did it at the high school, you'd have to set up for stands. There'd be some challenges there. And I don't know that having a home field on the campus is as much of a benefit when the tradition is not there. You mentioned York and Tab, and even Poquoson draws some great crowds. There's a lot of schools in the Bay Rivers that draw great numbers. The biggest challenge for the schools on the peninsula, and many schools for that matter, is establishing tradition. And there's not one key answer in my mind that's going to solve that.
Exactly. I was just thinking maybe one game a year, because like we've said, there's security there at Todd Stadium, there's security at Darling Stadium, and those are two well-maintained fields, but the attendance just is not there like it used to be back in the day. I understand they're moving the Hampton-Phoebus game, though, back to an evening game.
Yes, Hampton-Phoebus is coming to an evening game, and that will even that game hasn't drawn as much of a crowd as it has in the past. But then again, Hampton hasn't been competitive or as competitive as they used to be even just 5 or 6 years ago.
What about Suffolk and some of the Portsmouth schools?
Now, Suffolk being part of Southeastern District, should be strong again, although Lakeland has a new head coach and former assistant Joe Jones. He was an assistant at Oscar Smith, so it's going to be interesting to see what he can do with that program. Justin Conyers at Nansemond River has things rolling very well in Class 5. Kermit Buggs, former Old Dominion assistant coach, is now the new head coach at Kings Fork. So in Suffolk, you have 2 out of the 3 high schools with new head coaches. Similar problem in Portsmouth. 2 out of 3 of the schools have new head coaches. Churchland has Dontrell Leonard. who carries over from last year and has been there for a couple of years now. But Larry Archie is now at Granby, leaving Norcom. And you also have at Portsmouth a new head coach at Wilson High School. So change is the constant in Portsmouth and Suffolk.
Yeah, and back to one note on the peninsula, Danny Dotson, 21 years at Woodside.
Yes, and that's quite an accomplishment. And, of course, we mentioned Mike Smith earlier. We do have quite a few long-tenured coaches in the area, but all the changes this offseason seems to be setting a new trend.
Yeah, final few moments here with Andy Hilton. Andy, talk about the postseason. It's very confusing to the novice fan who's not into it like you are, that a losing record team can make the postseason. That's still kind of, you're getting rewarded for less than mediocrity. I know it's still a numbers game. You have to divide it evenly among all the smaller schools around the state, too. The VHSL, in my opinion, this is my opinion, caters to schools in Charlottesville, Roanoke, and those smaller counties that, are not in Hampton Roads, Richmond, or Northern Virginia, where most of the elite athletes come from, those three areas. But what is the status with postseason, how you make postseason? You got some in Division 3, some in 4, some in 5, some in 6, and there's been some changes this year as well.
Well, and the changes to classification happen every 4 years when they take a look at enrollment and they equally spread the teams out, or the schools out, the football programs out amongst each classification. Because Northern Virginia's population grows at a much faster rate than our area, you have more schools in Northern Virginia becoming a Class 6. So now Class 6 has four different regions, three of which are in Northern Virginia, and one of which is comprised of the biggest schools in Richmond and the 757, with the exception of Franklin County that's out toward Roanoke. So the biggest thing in terms of answering your question in terms of classification of the playoffs, when they expanded the playoffs, it was about 8 years ago, I believe now, they doubled the size of the playoffs. So you went from teams that were 8-2 not making the playoffs to teams that are 2-8 in some cases making the playoffs. In order to fill out the field, that's what they had to do to add an extra round. So it ends up being a struggle. It is every year. Last year we saw an 0-10 team out of the Richmond area make the playoffs, which is about the most ludicrous thing that could ever happen. But unfortunately, there's no easy way around it.
There's no easy way around it, but it's a credibility knock. It's a credibility knock toward the VHSL. I don't care what anybody says. No 0-10 team, no 1-9 team should ever make any postseason, because you're already telling the kids who are very vulnerable at that age, mature-wise, that you don't have to succeed and can still get what you want. I don't like the message at all.
I agree with you. But the only way to make a cutoff would be to say if you had only 4-win teams, or 4 wins is the cutoff, or 5 wins is the cutoff, and then they draw the playoff bracket based on the number of teams that meet the criteria, and then you'd have to have a draw where the number 1, number 2, maybe even the top 3 seeds get a bye the first round in order to make a balanced playoff. It just means that no one knows what the playoff structure will be until the season ends, and you figure out how many teams actually qualify for the playoffs.
All right, Andy, talk about your big event coming up.
I'd love to. In fact, this is the first year of the Recruit 757 Kickoff Classic that's happening at Darling Stadium as a doubleheader of football on Saturday, August 31st. We have 2 awesome games. The first game that kicks off at noon is Maury versus Bethel. The second game kicks off at 4. That's last year's state runner-up Lake Taylor at Class 4 against last year's state runner-up in Class 3 Phoebus. So that's Lake Taylor and Phoebus at 4 o'clock. 2 games on 1 ticket, and all of the money goes to a local nonprofit that's doing fundraising to fund programs that encourage mentorship and leadership with our young men in the community. So it's a fantastic event and a fantastic charity with Men's Huddle International, and of course Recruit 757 and my business is doing a lot to promote the game, and we expect to have a fantastic event for the community on that day. Absolutely.
It sounds like a lot of fun. And when you talk about that, Andy, how many phone calls and before and after conversations, insurance, everything got involved with stadium, getting 4 teams together? That takes a lot of work. Talk about some of the process to get this to make it evolve.
Well, the fun thing has been that we had to first figure out where we were going to have the game. You have a wish list of what teams you'd like to have involved. You start negotiating with the teams. You're also having to work within the BHSL schedule. So the fun thing is that next year we're going to do it all over again with the same teams. Once we started working with the Norfolk schools and the Hampton schools, Norfolk wanted in on the action. So the fun thing is that we're doing this at Darling Stadium this year. We're doing it at Powhatan Stadium in Norfolk next year, so that Lake Taylor and Maury will be the home teams. After a 2-year cycle, we'll start again with booking it, but we're looking forward to a fantastic event. And sponsorship sales are still open, so if anyone out there wants to sponsor, we'd love to have you on board. Again, all the money goes to our nonprofit, Men's Huddle International, which is helping with fostering great mentorship and leadership programs with the young men of the area.
What about Virginia Beach in the future?
That all options are open. So I've even talked to Chuck Thornton over at the Virginia Beach Sportsplex, and he's expressed some interest. They love to have big events over there. So the door is certainly open for not only doing this in a bigger way in the coming years, but actually bringing it to other parts of the state and maybe even other markets on the East Coast. So we have a lot of aspirations. Once we get the first event done, we'll look at potential expansion.
Andy, as the season starts, so what are some of the big games you'll be looking at early on in the month of September?
Well, of course, we have our doubleheader at Darling Stadium on August 31st. There is, as I mentioned before, Oscar Smith and Highland Springs meeting in week 1 of the season at Oscar Smith. There's the Hampton Phoebus game, which happens in September this year at Darling Stadium. You have, of course, the annual meeting of schools in the Beach District. Ocean Lakes goes off the board, so to speak, and instead of playing a full beach schedule, they'll be playing Maury, and Maury is a fantastic team in and of themselves. So seeing Ocean Lakes and Maury face each other in the middle of the season will be great. There's, again, just no shortage of good matchups. Week to week, we're going to have solid football being played in the region.
Is that the trend with Ocean Lakes? Is other schools in Virginia Beach going to follow that trend?
The complication with Virginia Beach is that their school system requires them to replace their opponent when they book a game. So there are 11 teams in the district. That gives you a 10-team schedule, and the schedule makes itself. So if anybody wants to veer off course, so to speak, they have to not only change their game, but change the game and find an opponent for their opponent, which makes scheduling those games even more difficult.
All right, leave us with all your social media.
Social media, it is Recruit757 on Facebook, Recruit757 on Instagram, Recruit757 on Twitter. It makes us easy to find. We share a ton of pictures, share all sorts of news on a daily basis for football programs, players, prospects, and even some college news related to the 757.
Andy, thank you, my friend. We look forward to talking to you again during the football season. Thank you for your time, your talent, and your treasure. Good luck to your big event, August 31st, and thank you for all that you do for high school sports.
Absolutely, Greg. Anytime, and thank you so much for having me on Sports Scene.
Very good. Andy Hilton right there from Recruit 757. Stay tuned. We'll be back after these messages.
Sports and Imports, located at 1322 Transylvania Avenue in Chesapeake. Sports and Imports specializes in all European models without the European price. ASE certified and Bosch certified. Don't waste time and money guessing what the problem is. Sports and Imports can pinpoint the problem and fix it the first time. Make an appointment today. Financing is available. Visit sportsandimports.net or call 545-9394. You are listening to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris. Now, back to Greg.
And welcome back to Sports Scene. A pleasure to talk to Kraig Cole from the Hampton Cup Regatta. Kraig, how are you, my friend?
Hey, Greg, how's it going? We're doing great, man.
All right. Every month we talk to Kraig. We're a partner here on this radio station and Sports Scene and the GJB Productions and Marketing, the entire team helping promote this wonderful event. Kraig Cole, the Hampton Cup Regatta in September.
Yeah, we're less than 2 months away from the event this year. This is our 94th year, Greg. 94, we're still running strong. We are AAA rated aquatic adrenaline action. That's what you're going to see out there on the water at Mill Creek beside Fort Monroe. We've got a lot of things happening. We're locking down all of our logistics. We're getting good returns on guys that are teams that are coming back this year. Keeping our fingers crossed to see a return of the Grand Prix again this year. Those guys saw an awesome show last year, and it was said that we hadn't seen out there in about 12 years. But this year we're going to see them again, and we're already counting on those guys, and we're just looking forward to it. And it's just there's so many things, so many facets put together, but everything's coming together well. We're adding new sponsors. We're really excited about seeing some of those guys. You're going to
Yeah, Kraig, every time we talk, it's always exciting because, when we first talk in the early part of the spring, it's still the preliminary stuff, although you've had several meetings. Now we're getting closer and closer to the event. And then when we talk again in August and September, we'll be right there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In general, we meet about once a month, talk about things, outlining our plans. But we are in the mode where we're meeting about every 2 weeks, just so that nothing slips between our fingers or slips into cracks. And we got every T crossed, every I dotted. We got all our permitting taken care of. We're partnering with the city. We're doing our promo events. We're making a promo event at least once a month. Downtown Hampton block parties, Langley Speedway. The 28th of July will be at a Mill Point Park for the Waiters Race, working with Downtown Hampton and Development Partnership. On the 17th of August, we'll be out at the Downtown Hampton block party. And then September the 7th, we'll be out back at Langley Speedway to promote the event. We'll be handing out our gate cards. We'll have our flat-bottom race boat display. Anyone's welcome to come up here and lay your hands on the boat, talk to the engine builder, take a seat in there. I mean, not a lot of people get to take a chance, have an opportunity to take a chance to sit in a speedboat, and this is your opportunity to do that. You can sit in there, take a few selfies, whatever you may want to do, and it's just a great way to promote the event because you're not out a date car. People are kind of like, okay, yeah, nice and great, but when you see that race boat, they're like, oh man, that is awesome. So we're really excited about doing those kind of events and meeting people and getting new people interested in new fans.
Absolutely. And, of course, you guys, promoted on radio, TV. We do this show. We have commercials on Channel 13 and Channel 10 and Fox 43 coming up for the fans, too. So that's always exciting to build momentum, not just a day or two before, but you guys promote constantly year-round. I think that's what separates you, especially in the September date.
Oh, yeah, and going to September has been a good move for us. We did a move about 3 years ago. We had tradition then in August for many years, but kind of like we've just been experiencing, here in the middle of July, the heat wave. There are a lot of weekends in August, for years we saw heat like that, and we saw a decline in our fan base, the crowds coming out, and we respond to that. We listen, we pay attention, and moving to September, you move to a cooler month, and it's just been a good move. Everybody sees the crowds have bounced back. Everybody's so much more appreciative of having those cooler temperatures, not just on the fan side, on the bridge side, but over in the pits and on the race teams as well. Because these boats and race boats, the engines perform better in lower humidity. So we actually see a few more miles per hour out of them going to that cooler month.
And, of course, there's a lot of things there for the fans, too, for the participants, for the racers. You have a lot of hospitality the day before you have an event at restaurants. You really get the whole community involved. There's something for everyone.
Oh, yeah, something for everybody. On Friday night, the 20th, we'll have Running with Scissors Band at Oozlefinch Craft Brewery. That's our kickoff event. We'll have the field right there in front of the brewery with race boats on display. Again, people can walk up, see them, talk to drivers, take a seat in the cockpit if they're so inclined. Then throughout the weekend, we'll have adult beverages from M. Price out there. We'll have the Bud Light Build-A-Bar. If anybody does want to talk about, that's a real cool feature. We've got our merch vendor, our merch village coming together. Our limited edition T-shirts, the design. We'll finish up the design over here in the next week or so. That is a unique design. Every year it features a different set of race boats and race teams. So every year it's never the same. We've got some good food vendors coming on board. We've got Benny's on Wheels, the pizza guys. They're locked in. Our Kona Ice returns to us. And we've got J.D. Smoke and Chicken Barbecue out of Richmond coming back down here to join with us. And working on a couple more. Haven't locked them in yet. So you can't really throw their name out there, but we will have something for everybody.
Right, and your board, of course, like you said, you're meeting a couple times a month now as it gears toward the event. What about the racers and hospitality for them? I know sometimes they'll stay in hotels, sometimes they'll bundle up together. Give us what the racers and their sponsors and their whole teams do as far as lodging is concerned.
Well, we have a host hotel over there at the Marriott, the Courtyard by Marriott over there on Coliseum Drive. That we usually do sell that puppy out with different teams coming in. And the teams will range from they're rolling in with a pickup truck pulling their boat, and then they stay at the hotel, to these guys will come in with a decked-out RV, the double-decker RVs and whatnot. I mean, sometimes these things these guys come rolling in like rock stars. And they'll tailgate out there in the pit area. they'll go back out to the restaurants that are down there in Phoebus along Mellon Street, as well as down Mowry and downtown Hampton. Some of them will pop over there, and because when they're done racing for the day, they want to unwind too. If they haven't had too many problems out on the water where they needed some attention on the boat itself, they want to unwind, they want to relax, and they're here on vacation, so to speak, as well. And they want to enjoy all the hospitality Hampton has to offer, because that is one of the number one things they cite when anybody comes to talk to them. What do you like about Hampton? And they say that they feel so welcome and they love coming to see us. And being a Hampton native, Hampton boy, born and raised, that makes me feel so good to hear that. Yeah, really, it's a great event right there in September. And you mentioned the city of Hampton, the city council, the fire department, the police department, all the first responders are all right there helping you. Really, it's a community event, like we mentioned, but the city really helps out with this, and really it also helps put Hampton on the map, keeps them credible, keeps them viable in the later part of the year. Oh, yeah. We could not put on this event without the city of Hampton. We thanked them so many times. We will make an appearance in front of the city council probably on the 11th of September. That'll be their city council meeting right before our event. The police guys that come out and just give us overall just feeling of safety. Not that we ever have any issues out there, but in case there ever is one, we have those guys right there. We have our wonderful volunteer rescue squad that stay on site for us as well. Fire trucks are down there in case we have an incident down the pits that we need to take care of. Again, we've never had a problem, but it's always nice to know that we're right there with them. Like I mentioned, Langley Speedway, we were out at the Hampton Heat back on the 21st of July. I had a chance to talk to a few folks at City Council. They had some guys from NASCAR there. Actually, one of the fellows from the Daytona track. Chatted him up a little bit, invited him to come out on Sunday of the races, because they are racing in Richmond on the 21st of September. And I said, hey, you want to come down and see what we do with speed on the water? Love to have you. Come on down. One thing is great. Yeah, go ahead, Kraig. I'll say, and he had a big smile on his face, so I will probably take you up on that. Yeah. What's great about it, too, sometimes, you don't want to underestimate free admission, too. And some people never had a chance to go to a professional sporting event. This is their opportunity, Kraig. Yeah, absolutely. Like you mentioned, we are a free event. And the way we're able to keep that is through our wonderful sponsors and, our merch village, our different food trucks we bring out there and different amenities, because this race is not a free event to put on, but we do not charge admission. It is a free admission, and that's the way we do that, and we want to keep it that way always. So if anybody's listening and are interested in being a sponsor, it doesn't have to be a huge amount. It can be as little as $250, all the way up to whatever amount somebody's interested in contributing. Please email us at hcr1926@gmail.com. or reach out to us through Facebook or Instagram. And I'd love to talk to anybody who wants to be part of the HCR family. Like I said, we've been adding some new sponsors already this year. If you can check out the site, you'll see them posted. And we just love to see new family members come in and help put on one of the best events in Hampton for the year. Give us the dates and the times. Yeah, this year's event, our race event, will be September 21st and 22nd with our kickoff party on the 20th down here in Ouzelfinch. And the premium viewing area is right there on the Mercury Boulevard Bridge. And race times are approximately 11 a.m. to the last race, which is usually between 4 and 5 p.m., depending on our boat count. We are tidal. Water's over there, so that's why the start time could vary a little bit. But we will be getting the show running as soon as possible. We'll light off with the national anthem for United States and Canada. I'm kind of proud of that. My cousin Paula Kale, she comes out and sings for us, and she does an awesome job. And then we'll get right into racing. And one thing I do want to tell everybody, we bring the little guys, J-Stock guys, the 9 to 13-year-olds. They actually raced on the course in front of the bridge, started last year. People loved it. We're going to bring that back again this year. So if you want to see the little guys come around, please come out early and so you can see those boys run and those girls run. I mean, girls get the boys a lot of times, too. Oh, yeah, definitely. It's really a lot of fun out there. And, it takes a village to get this done. And Kraig Cole and his team are very important to the community. And Kraig, those public address announcements the weekend while people are still there are very important. So that really keeps people to know what's going on as far as the competition, but also on the venue there as well. Absolutely. We have one of the better, one of the better of the race announcers, John Tomey. He will let you know everybody who's on that water and how it's going. And I mean, there's times that if I'm busy, helping to address whatever issue we may have during the event. If I hear him start to get excited, I know there's something awesome going on in the water, and I will drop what I'm doing and I will go man that rail and watch that heat.
Really, Kraig, there's no job that you don't do there. You're all over the place. I mean, you start your morning off right there getting a biscuit, then you're living there. There's times.
I'm literally down there from Wednesday on to the following Monday, putting the event space together and taking it apart. And Greg, I do not do this by myself. We have a wonderful team of hardworking volunteers on the committee. There's about between 20 and 30 of us. I lose count sometimes, and I apologize, but we just and I'm hesitate to mention anybody by name because I don't want to miss anybody. But please know that we have some of the hardest working folks on our committee. Everyone pulls their weight, and there's no one in there that I have any qualms about saying they're the best of what they do in their area.
Very nice talking to Kraig Cole. Kraig, leave us with your Facebook and website.
Yeah, Instagram, it is Hampton Cup Regatta, and then on Facebook, it's Hampton Cup Regatta, and we have HamptonCupRegatta.com for our website.
Very nice.
Any of those places, you can reach out to us, message us, and we also have a place on there for a link for email on the website, so you can reach out and touch us anytime with any question you may have, and we'll have somebody get back to you as soon as possible.
Very good. Kraig, all the best. We'll talk to you in August.
All right. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. Kraig Cole right there from the Hampton Cup Regatta. Stay tuned.
Sports Scene, Hampton Roads premier interview show with Kraig Bicouvaris, each Saturday from 10 a.m. to 11.
And you look at that, 4-4 at home, which is just average, 4-3-1 on the road. I mean, you're not going to win any games like that. They were not the same team after they beat the Packers, yet the Packers were a totally different team.
Interact with Sports Scene on Twitter @GregBic and listen weekly as Greg interviews distinguished guests with excellent commentary and insight. Sports Scene, Saturdays at 10 a.m. on the Lighthouse 100.1 FM. It's now time for Greg's Highlights, presented by HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com.
Highlights right here, of course, GJBTV.com, HRSMHOF.com, HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com, GJBTV.com. Click the YouTube link for archive shows. Our question of the day presented by Buffalo Wild Wings and Newport News to our esteemed producer, Dominique. Dominique, can you go a whole 24-hour day without listening to music at all?
Plenty of other things today I can do other than listen to music.
Very good. All right, folks, stay tuned. We'll be back after these messages.
Mold, trash, rodents, snakeskin, even deceased animals. No, this isn't a Halloween shopping list. It's what might be under your house, in your crawl space. Schedule a free crawl space inspection with the Crawl Space Company and find out what's in your crawl space. Call 757-394-3494 to schedule your free inspection or visit thecrawlspacecompany.net. So, do you know what's in your crawl space? Catch up on archived editions of Sports Scene by going to gjbtv.com and clicking the YouTube image on the homepage. Now back to Sports Scene with Kraig Bicouvaris.
And welcome back to Sports Scene. Always a pleasure to talk to Ian Locke from the Norfolk Tides on a regular basis here. Ian, how are you, my friend?
I'm great, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Very good. You got a big upcoming homestand coming up soon.
Yeah, we got a lot of games kind of closing out the regular season. Regular season ends on Labor Day, so August is jam-packed. I think we have about 20 home games or so throughout the month. So there's a whole lot of stuff going on from giveaways and fireworks and things like that. So it's a busy month, and we're excited to kind of end of the regular season in style.
The hot stretch really affected a lot of people here in Hampton Roads, on and off the baseball field. How does it affect the player as far as staying hydrated, eating the right foods? Because we had extreme temperatures here recently.
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, we had a stretch where we were home that weekend, and the hot stretch started on a Thursday, and we had a day game, a Thursday afternoon game at 12:05. I think the heat index was like 105 or something like that when we started. So our trainer, Chris Poole, does a good job of getting all the players kind of hydrated and get them ready, not just that day, but ahead of schedule, looking at the weather forecast and saying, hey, it's going to be very warm the next few days. Make sure you hydrate. Make sure you get a lot of water, Gatorade, or whatever it is in your system. That way you're not scrambling trying to play catch up on those games. And it's tough too because we had, from a front office standpoint too, people didn't want. It was tough to have that hot out. Not many people wanted to go outside during that weather. And as an outdoor venue, we certainly have some shade and some air conditioning spots. But when it's that hot, people don't want to be outside because honestly, it's miserable outside. So we had a some big nights, fireworks and giveaways and things that we didn't draw as much as we probably would have if the weather had been a little more cooperative. So it's tough for us on the front office side, but the players, sitting out there, I feel especially bad for any of the catchers or pitchers on the mound who are constantly in play and just going through just so much sweat during those games. And I know for instance we had a day game the last day, but it was very hot, and Austin Wins, our catcher, caught that game, and after about the 7th inning, we looked down and he had changed his jersey number was different. He took his jersey off. The previous jersey had been just sweated so much through it that he needed to put a fresh jersey on. So there was no sub on our end, but our catcher was wearing a different jersey and just trying another way to try and stay cool.
Absolutely. Talking to Ian Locke right here. And Ian, let's talk about some of the stuff that fans might not know of. Let's talk about a day game or a night game as far as what kind of food is provided to the players. I know there's always something in the clubhouse, but talk about the road trips as far as how are they, handling food, because a lot of times they're on their own. You've gone on road trips before. Talk about home meals and away meals. How do they work?
Yeah, so for folks who don't know, there's a home clubhouse manager and a visiting clubhouse manager here at Harbor Park, and also for throughout the International League. And part of that clubhouse manager's duties is to provide food, do the laundry, kind of run some errands for the players throughout the season, because the players are generally at the ballpark pretty much every day. So our home clubhouse manager is a guy named Adam Selmeyer, and Adam does a fantastic job. Basically when the players arrive at 1:30, 2 o'clock for a 7 o'clock game, there's food ready available for them, and that's anything from fruit platters and salads and some cereal and some kind of smaller things to nibble on, and then there some appetizer kind of things when they're done with batting practice. And batting practice ends around probably 5 o'clock or so, 5:15 in that area. So once the players come off the field from batting practice, they come back in, and there's kind of a heavier appetizers, kind of smaller sandwiches kind of thing available for the players to eat before the game starts at 7:05. And then when that game ends, generally around 10 o'clock or so, there's a meal ready for the players in the clubhouse afterwards as well. So the players do get to eat, pretty decent amount when they're at the ballpark. And part of that, the process is the players need to pay for that food out of their own pockets. So they get a daily stipend that they pay the clubhouse manager to take care of that food for them while they're in season. And that also happens on the road as well. So when we go on the road, to a different ballpark, we're there for 3 or 4 days. The visiting clubhouse manager will provide food and all those things for the players from the visiting team. So the clubhouse managers are very busy. They're up awake all hours of the night during the season. I often have told you before, we're here for from 10 a.m. to about 11 o'clock at night or so on a game day. The clubhouse manager, they're the ones that do all the laundry and all the food and everything, but they're also available ready when players get called up or sent down. So if a player gets called up after a game or sent down after a game, or they get home and they get called up by the Orioles and they have to come back to the ballpark, the clubhouse manager is the one that's there to pack their bats and jerseys and gloves and get that ready for them to go. Sometimes across the country. Sometimes you get a guy called up to Seattle and they need to be there the next day. Our clubhouse manager is the guy that's going to pack up their stuff, get it on the, get FedEx the equipment, or drop the player off at the airport to get them on their way. So clubhouse guys are very, very important to our organization. And Adam, our home clubhouse guy, and Jack Brenner, our visiting guy, do a great job to kind of help that process rolling.
Talking to Ian Locke, now when they have a game or a day off on the road, they pretty much get a stipend?
On the road, yes. So they get a it depends on per team, I believe, what that is. But it's a small amount. It's not a crazy amount, but it's enough to eat with and get by. But I guess the one thing is, and I'm sure you've noticed over the years, is the more healthy you eat, it seems the more expensive it costs.
Yeah.
So if you get your daily stipend, if it's $15 for per meal or whatever it is, you can get a pretty good. I can eat on $15, no problem. But these professional athletes sometimes trying to eat healthy with whatever it is, chicken or steak or salads or whatever. Sometimes those cost a little extra to eat healthy. So that's kind of a conundrum they have. Do you spend more money to eat healthy, and because that's what you're gonna want to keep your body in shape, but at the same time, that costs a little more.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. They got to have carbs, but they can't eat too many carbs either.
Right, exactly.
All right, talking to Ian Locke, how would you compare Ian in all the years you've been there, the 2019 season, to any other season you've been involved with?
It's different. I know I've mentioned this before with the offense and the baseballs are different. So there's a lot more offense, and that if you like offense, this is the year for you. Not just at the minor league level, but at the major league level as well. The home runs are up across the board, and I know there's been a lot of studies gone about the baseballs, particularly at the major league level. There's a lot of teams that are on pace to set franchise records for home runs hit in the season. The Tides are no different on our end, and unfortunately, this year we're also on pace to give up more home runs than we've ever allowed as well. So Harbor Park has seen a ton of home runs this year. It's always been kind of a pitcher's park here at the ballpark with the wind blowing off the Elizabeth River, but I've seen so many home runs this year go through, over the center field fence or pop-ups that look like they were just routine fly balls carrying out of the ballpark. So offense is abundant this year, and there's a lot more games. And we had a game, I think, a 14-13 win earlier this year. We won. We scored 17 in the game earlier, and a lot of high-scoring games. And offense is up, and it's the same. Other than that, it's a typical kind of thing at this level where we're seeing a lot of our guys from the Tides go up and down from the Orioles. Baltimore not exactly having a great season. They knew that kind of going in. They're kind of rebuilding, but you're still seeing guys play here at Harbor Park one day and then the next day get called up. So that's always an exciting part of the job, and every once in a while I do get to see a player get called up for the first time in their career, and the chance to see those guys realize their lifelong dreams that they are getting promoted is something really cool, and that's something I'll always cherish.
Your owner, Ken Young, has always been an innovator with concessions, but have you ever seen these fans that blow cold air? Had you ever thought about having them around the park, especially around the concourse?
As far as like keeping stuff cool?
Yeah.
We've had experimented a little bit with misters a little bit too, where we have fans that blow kind of some misting water on the concourse, and it's tough to keep up. I mean, especially on a day like the heat wave we had a little bit ago. I mean, you can't. You can only cover so much ground, and we have suites upstairs that are air conditioned. But once you crack a window, that's ball game. It's too hot, and air conditioning can't keep up. And we have big fans in the dugouts too to try and cool the players a little bit. And that's just they really don't work unless you're standing right next to them. So it's tough with an outdoor venue to kind of keep track of that. But we like to remind fans the concourse is covered. We have a full-service restaurant that has a ton of air conditioning in it, and cold drinks and everything in there. And we do our best to keep fans cool when we can. And sometimes it's a losing battle when it's when there's 115-degree heat index. There's not much we can do except grit and bear it and try and play as fast as we can.
Talking to Ian Locke from the Norfolk Tides. Kraig Bicouvaris, glad you're with us every Saturday morning from 10 to 11 on AM 1010, 100.1 FM, tunein.com. Type in WPMH to listen on your search bar. All right, tell us about the month of August. What do you got in store, and when is the last home game of 2019?
So the last home game is Labor Day. So we are fast approaching the final stretch of the season here. Starting in August, we actually have a stretch from August 2nd to August 11th where there are 9 games in 11 days. So home a lot. I know one highlight for folks that'll be August 9th through 11th. For the longest time we were a Mets affiliate from 1969 to 2006. We were a Mets affiliate. Well, the Mets come back into town as the Syracuse Mets this year. They're playing against the Tides from August 9th, 10th, and 11th. On August 9th, we're actually having a Tidewater Baseball Shrine induction, which is kind of almost like a little Harbor Park Hall of Fame that we have on our concourse. And one of the folks there's 4 folks getting inducted into that: Tony Guzzo, Wayne Gomes, Sam Allen, and David Wright. Obviously, folks will know David Wright, who played for the Tides in 2004, I believe, and had obviously a distinguished career with the Mets. So he'll be here on August 9th at Harbor Park. And we're also doing, because we're playing the Mets that night, we're doing a Tidewater Tides baseball cap, an old school kind of retro Tidewater Tides cap that night giveaway. So that'll be a pretty big night on August 9th. And August 10th, we have the next night, we're still playing the Mets, and we have fireworks and our Navy night. And those Navy nights are always big, where we kind of honor the brave men and women that serve in the Navy with some discounted tickets for their dependents at Harbor Park. We do a lot of like re-enlistment ceremonies, and those are always big nights at the ballpark. So that weekend will be big. We also have some bobblehead nights going on in August where we do Black Panther a Black Panther bobblehead. We're doing Star Wars night is on August 3rd. So there's a lot of stuff going on in August, and it's kind of crazy how it's running down pretty quick, though. I mean, once we get through August 11th, there's only 8 home games after that, and it's crazy to believe the season's almost over. But Labor Day is fast approaching and right around the corner.
Yeah, talking to Ian Locke here from the Norfolk Tides. Got to ask you one question off the baseball grid. You're a Star Wars fan like I am. What are you expecting in the upcoming movie in December?
I don't know. I'm not sure how they're going to tie it up, and I'm excited. I can still, my inner child still gets pretty geeked out when I get to see those things. So I'm not sure what they're going to do. I'm not sure who's going to end up being a good guy or a bad guy, but I don't know what's going to happen in the movie, but I do know that I'll be standing in line to buy a ticket and see what happens. So
yeah,
it doesn't matter if it gets good reviews or bad reviews. I'll be there.
That'd be awesome one day if y'all could show the movie right there at Harbor Park.
There's some licensing issues we have with trying to do that stuff. But,
exactly.
Every once in a while we do have. I think those nights have already passed, but we do have Boy Scout night and Girl Scout night here at the ballpark throughout the summer. I think those nights have already passed, but we do have kids camp out on the field, and we show a movie on the big screen, which is always a really cool night for the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts to be a part of that. So that's always fun to look up from the press box and see, hundreds of kids camping out on the field. Kenny Magner, our grounds crew, I'm not sure they're thrilled with it because they wake up in the morning and there's some trash left over by the youngsters, but it's still a really fun night.
What about you talk about the Tides and so forth, but been a great season overall. It takes really a village to make it all work, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. I mean, we have so many folks here kind of put in some crazy long hours, and we were, I was talking to someone earlier today. You spend more time at the ballpark here than with your family once the season starts for all of us in the front office. So, we're here from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. kind of thing on a game night, and we have very understanding and loving wives and husbands that'll allow that to happen, kind of thing. So
sure.
That's a great thing. I mean, but at the same time, we all get along as a staff, kind of thing. So
right.
You kind of have to when you're near that many people for so many days, so many hours a day. So fun season. It's always a bittersweet kind of thing when we do get towards the end of the season, because there's so many folks that not only work in the front office here, but game day staff that we some of our best friends that are here all the time, and work from the the elevator operators, the ticket takers, and ushers. We see those folks every day, and you kind of disappear a little bit once the season ends. But they're certainly in our thoughts as we go to the off season.
All right, real quick, what is high school football season like at Harbor Park?
Non-existent right now. We used to do some games here back in the day, but I think the only time we ever host a game is if there's a playoff game and a City of Norfolk school is hosting, but they don't have a capacity over 10,000, I believe. And I think some local schools, I think Norfolk Academy, maybe not Norfolk Academy, I'm trying to think, Lake Taylor, I believe, was one of the schools, but they've gotten a bigger stadium recently, so they don't need to play here. So it's been a couple of years since we've had a high school football game here. Always neat to see it transform to a football stadium, but at this point, no high school football games are scheduled here.
All right, leave us with your social media.
Yeah, so for folks who want to check out our full promotional schedule the rest of the year, we do have fireworks every Saturday night the rest of the year that we're home, and they can check it out at norfolktides.com. Just click on the promotions link at the top of the page.
Catch up on archived editions of Sports Scene by going to gjbtv.com and clicking the YouTube image on the homepage. Now back to Sports Scene with Kraig Bicouvaris. What tees you off? Presented by HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com.
What tees me off, Dominique? People who overdo credit card purchases and don't spend cash, just rely on the credit card.
Yeah, you have to pay it back eventually one day. You just keep letting it pile up. But
exactly. People who give little notice in general, whether it's a job, personal, or business.
Worst people in the world. I think an advance notice is the greatest thing you can do for somebody.
Absolutely. We all loved eating at a restaurant, at home, whatever, on a table with our feet on the ground. What about rooftop dining areas? I don't want to go on a roof of a building and eat anywhere and look over a 10-story building. I'm sorry. I'm not Superman.
Doesn't sound like anything I'm interested in, but hey, some people might like it.
Yeah, they could be Superman. Amazing how outdoor dining seats, Dominique, that we might sit on during the day in patios can be like a homeless shelter at night. It's not meant for that.
Never thought of it like that. That's why I dine indoors.
Very good. Attendance on the beach. Can you imagine this, Dominique? You're at the beach, you're in the water swimming or just walking the beach, and all of a sudden you see an attendant putting a business card underneath your towel or your bag. That's not really cool.
Well, they got to get their stuff off somehow to promote.
Exactly, but still, you want them to leave your stuff alone. All right, that's what teased me off. I want to thank our guests today, Andy Hilton, Kraig Cole, Ian Locke. For more, go to gjbtv.com. Hit the YouTube link for archive shows. Thank you for listening to Sports Scene every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock right here on WPMH. For Dominique, I'm Greg Bicouvaris. We'll talk to you soon.